part of the SHIPIT Nation community. I enjoy the Discord. I get a lot of information out of the Discord, and then I use the site, so all the slate plans, slate info, all that, the DVP stuff. I would say join a site because they do help and you get all the information and it saves you so much time.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo. We got a new show. It's an oldie but a goodie. We started up with a new name, but it's the classic review show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Nades here with me. Gonna break it all down. It's the Takedown Breakdown, and if you saw the thumbnail, it was the Tyreek Shakedown. We had him in cuffs, getting cuffed up. He did the celebration. We called that on the show yesterday on the channel. So if you're here supporting for the first time, we appreciate you. We're gonna break down some of the main tournaments, the $100 Millie Maker, the 44-44, knowing some of the best players in the industry, going to break down sort of what their portfolios look like, going to break down some of the tools from SHIPIT Nation where you could see some of these lineups that you could build and maybe help your own process when you're using the tools over on our site. And then we are going to break down the mystery $5 Millie Maker winner that everybody's having such a hard time comprehending, and maybe for good reason. We'll get to that. But Nades, bringing you in, man. What's going on, my friend? Week one, good week so far, as we like to say.
Yeah, good week one so far. We had an incredible week over here at the Nation. It's not done yet. Still $1 million up top tonight. Still another milli to chase. Hopefully it's split less than 5 ways. That's what we're always chasing for. But nonetheless, still a fun night ahead. But yeah, huge process. Excited to be back on the show. Love this show. It's huge in my process. I know it's huge in your process. I know you and I did the show all year last year. I'll probably be on here multiple times this year too as well. Excited to talk some of these lineups and see what we can do to help some of the people in the chat here, maybe improve their process, right? It's not just trust the process when you don't know what process to trust. And that's part of building these lineups is developing a process. And that's what we do over here.
Yeah, it could be whether you're a single entry player, 3 max, 5 max, 20 max, 150 max, all these things and more. We put education courses, tutorials, all that stuff up on the site. But this is how you can actually talk about real life application. It's not about being results oriented when we go back and look. We're not just looking at the winners to make fun of them or to find out if it is that type of winner. But either way, we're going to find some stuff out here and be able to dig in. Week one, it's a crapshoot. People will say this. We'll look at some of these lineups and see, but it also really did bear out kind of what I said yesterday, right off the top of the show. It's mixing in some of the chalk, mixing in some of the other good spots, and then trying to put the puzzle pieces together in the best way. So we'll do that when we get there. Shout out to everybody joining us in here. Our guy Marley, huge week for him. Congrats to Marley. That was a big one. $116 into a 112K. on the Friday night football game in Brazil, I believe it was. So, yeah, congrats to Marley. Huge sweat there. He had that Elliott kick at the end. Shout out to my guy Newens. I can do some personal business right now. If he's watching, we will meet on Wednesday, my friend. So, yeah, that time, just send me a text to confirm, and we'll be all good. Rin is back. It's not a golf show, and he's still here. Illini fan, Casey, Sean, we appreciate all you guys hopping in here. Ham likes the hat, little hockey love up there. It's not a Leafs hat, though, if you look closely. GK Pfeiffer, he's got the founding family free roll winner this week, won $1,000 in there to kick off the season. We keep those giveaways rolling. Going to be more giveaways in the Discord tonight. Our guy Bader Bear, Cody, shout out to my guy Kenny. He's in here all the time as well. Denny, just lots of good people, and Chris. So we got you all. But we're going to break it down. We're going to look at a couple things here. And the way we always started off is we started the perfect lineup just to see. So Nades, while I'm pulling that up, just anything from yesterday that you took away. It was sort of a chalk-ish day, as most week ones usually are, but just want to start there and see what your thought process was around that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway that I had is, I mean, obviously contest size matters, but the quote unquote chalk, right? Anthony Richardson was projected to be mega chalk. He comes in, he's not even that high owned in multiple of these contests, right? In the $100, I think he was like 10% owned. I had him at something like that. And I mean, it's just so many people are so worried about chalk, and realistically, you got 9 spots to fill out in a lineup. We're going to talk about that when we get to Yoshi Voss, right? The 3K wide receiver. He also came in lower owned in majority of the contest. Probably 95% of this chat is playing in. So it's just week one, there's a lot of uncertainty, but overall, that's my biggest takeaway is people try to get too cute and find the diamond in the rough. We talk about it all the time and just not take that free square a lot of times, because a lot of these lineups he does show up in regardless of the only 5. It's what he does for the rest of your lineup. And that's the biggest thing, is just not worrying so much about ownership. It's not about who you play. It's about how you play them. We talk about that all the time. And you'll see a lot of good plays littered throughout these winning lineups. And 1 or 2 spots at the pivots is realistically the difference from min cashing to shipping the whole thing.
Yeah, and the OGs know. Hopefully, this doesn't get misconstrued. I even had to clarify in the Discord because I always forget there's new people. There's a lot of people coming in, all this. You're absolutely right, and this has been my line for many years. You can't really make fun of them because they won $1 million. It's like you said, they're set, they're on their way. What it's more so setting up for is that a realistic build that you would put together? Is that something oftentimes going to continuously put you in the position to be able to get lucky? For myself, here's a prime example. I've never won a Millie Maker. I have 3 third places. I have tons of top 10s and top 20s. I'm putting myself in the position to be able to hit it. That's what it's all about. Will this person ever get back? Maybe, maybe not, but they also probably don't need to. So to your point, that's why I always say the same thing as you, but we are looking again, not results oriented, not that, trying to figure out what we can do with our process to find a way to put ourselves in the position more often. So hopefully we can be the person that we're reviewing on this show. So Nades, I pulled up here for those that don't know, shout out to our friends at Line Star app. It is their perfect lineup. It starts out Josh Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, who was pretty solid yesterday and was like interesting the way you could set him up, because if you wanted to play Yoshi Voss, which as many did, and we're going to spend a few minutes just on him directly later, because at 3K at 50% unowned, I know there was a lot of different takes, but you could set up that secondary stack if you want. It was not needed, obviously, in the perfect lineup. It's only pulling the best of the best for what you can fit it for. It's a 49-8 lineup that hit 226, 190, what was it? 196, took it down, 196.88 in the big $5 needed less as you go down the board at different Millie Makers, which we'll hit on. Joe Mixon talked yesterday, again, just a little bit more. And that was interesting too, because Walker and White both had, solid enough games, both did something, but they ended up being more floor than ceiling. And for just a couple $100, $200 more, you could get Joe Mixon in a great game environment there in Houston. Indy, we'll go to that in a little bit. Tyreek, even after the cuffs, before the cuffs, whatever you want to call it, he was in a good spot. Pierce, downs out, getting a piece of that game. Houston, Indy kind of fits. Funny when you put these together, they still often can line up. Tampa Bay, Washington had a piece of that game. If you weren't on Alvin Kamara, potato, you could get on Foster Moreau. And then if you weren't playing Josh Palmer, who was popular over on FanDuel and even some stuff talked about on DraftKings, J.K. Dobbins sort of fit in there at 4,900, and then the Bears D. So kick it to you first, Nades. It just is funny for those watching for the first time. These perfect lineups often, you know what I mean? Let me explain it a different way quickly. On the $5, when we get to it later, everyone's making up conspiracies on how he got to it, and that's different. On this, it is still a lot of the good plays, and then you can see some of the leverage spots where, no Kamara with Moreau, Dobbins instead of the receiving game there, Pierce instead of, some of the other setup people had within that game. So give me your thoughts on this perfect lineup, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull out a couple of things. Number one, Ramondre Stevenson, if you think about it, right, the Bengals were chalk, right? You got Yoshi Voss in that. Everybody wanted the Burrow stacks, the Chase, right, narrative. Didn't get paid. He's going to go out there and go crazy, right? He was on a pitch count, goes out, all the things. Why not leverage the other side of that game, right, with the bulk guy, Stevenson, who's been in that offense? They're overall a young team. They're down this year. Why not lean on your workhorse back? And if that game script flips like it did, well, Stevenson at his price point is also off the chalk in that range and can easily get there. That's what we've seen. I know a lot of sharp players did have that, have some of Stevenson for sure in their portfolio. Same thing, Joe Mixon leveraging that game, right? Everybody wanted the passing attacks on both sides of that game, right? Anthony Richardson obviously did get there and that, but leveraging that, Joe Mixon, I know some of our guys, Newlands and that in the chat talked about Joe Mixon a lot. He was on the Stone. So just 2 leverage plays built in right there. taking the Tyreek Hill, right? The whole narrative where Scotty Scheffler goes out and gets cuffed up and then goes on and crushes that. And then Tyreek Hill, everything. Nonetheless, he was in a good spot too. Alec Pierce is a pivot right in that game. Everybody wanted to play. Drawing a blank on his name now. Who he should have had 2 touchdowns, right?
Adonai Mitchell had a chance at 2 touchdowns. Got overthrown at least on one.
Both walking, and Richardson just missed him. But Alec Pierce has been in this offense, right? He was in there last year. Anthony Richardson definitely liked him last year. Obviously, there's shiny new toy there with Adonai Mitchell, but still a lot of leverage built in here, and then still attacking the good games, right? Grabbing Chris Godwin, who knows the target monster there. And overall, I think this isn't as crazy as a perfect lineup that we're going to see multiple times throughout the year. You could have easily got to something like this. It's not how I build. It's not how you build, but still it makes sense in ways that you break it down like that.
Sprained MCL for Jake Ferguson. So news just came up for people wondering. We're always on top of the news, but car smashing was a wild thing to see. Yes. Tight end was so bad. This is something we talk about all the time. You know who hurt my feelings yesterday was Gesicki. Because I was playing him. I was saying, if everybody's on this $3,000 guy, and I am too, but I was playing about the field with him. I was saying that if you're not going to do it, I didn't mind getting the same price, same guy, slide him into what I always call it the onesie position. You need to play at least one tight end, but you also only have to play one tight end if you want. You don't have to play double tight end. We'll talk more on that later, but just to note it, like that's kind of the setup here. If you're not playing AK, you can hop in with Moreau and put him in for the min price. Does it mean it's going to work? No. It's just saying, like, again, you're just punting off the position if you don't have the guys that you love. Unfortunately, guys like Dalton Kincaid hurt a lot of feelings yesterday, things like that. But I just think in general, Pitts was kind of the chalk, and he did okay. So that's where you'll see him pop in on some lineups and situational stuff out there. But the last thing I'll say, just someone else had it here, was not my best week, but ready for week 2. That's what this show's all about. That's exactly what it is. And you guys know the signs behind me and up on the wall, and my mantra, nobody cares, work harder. That goes both ways, and that's why we're here. All we're doing is working on the game. When you lose and you got a story to bitch about, nobody cares. Just go back to work. They got the same story. Everybody else got their story. They all had a bad beat. We were all so close to winning showdown. We hear it all the time. It's DFS. We get it. But when you win, if I won $1 million yesterday, it would be phenomenal. It would be amazing for myself and my family. It would be a lifetime goal achieved. It would be tons of congratulations from great people around the industry who I appreciate their support. But I would still be back here doing this show today and getting after it and working just to go out and find the next one. And we're going to talk about that with some of the winners later on. One of my friends took down the Millie yesterday. Excited to see him later this month. But we'll talk about that when we get there. I just think this is a key point, and this was brought up too today in our Discord. If you didn't win week 1, guess what? You're with like 99% of the other people that didn't win. A lot of people don't win. That's how DFS works. You're in it for the long haul. You're in it to be, sustainable, contest selection, bankroll management, all those things we don't just say, we talk about it. We put it into courses over on SHIPIT Nation and whatnot. But just in general, it's like everybody else lost too. We're all going back to work to find the next win. You can do it tonight. There's $1 million up tonight. The other night, Marley, $116 to $112K. That can happen for somebody else tonight. Hopefully, if it's not me, it's one of you guys out there watching, trying to work on your game and get better and putting in the work. But just to say it, it also only takes 1 week. Like he said here, in football, you could lose. Last year, I think I lost so bad for 6 weeks. And then from week 7 to 9 or 7 to 10, I won the 100K twice. It's like you put in that work, you lose a bunch, then you get a bunch back and more, and then you double stack it and put it on top again, another 6 figures. Like that's what you're playing this game for. So got to just keep that stuff in mind as you're going through it. I put up the post today, Nades. We will get to some lineup review later on. I'm just trying to think where to start. Do you want to do, let's let the chat decide. Do you want to break down the $5 milli first, and from there we'll go 100 up to the mega? Or do you want us to go through sort of the tools over at SHIPIT Nation and how we'll find some of the lineups that could compete with some of these? What do you think makes more sense, Nades? Like do this one first and then go to that, or flip it?
I think if we go to the tools first, that way when we're reviewing the lineups, they can see the process. But I don't know if the chat has a take on that. But I don't care either way. I think going through the tools makes more sense.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's start there, because that way we can just use some of the stuff to get after it. And if it ends up being on that stuff, we can kind of see what score is put up and all that. I'll actually pull up a score counter over here on this side, just so I've got it up as well. Try and build off of that. But essentially just showing the stone on our site. So this is one thing I know, like Tampa Bay and the Washington game got pumped up pretty hard yesterday. You can go to our stack rankings on the site, NFL stack rankings. This was from yesterday, so it's not like we re-updated or something. There's a bunch of mishaps in here. There's also some good stuff in here, but I think for sure, we'll get to that, Jordan. When we do it, we will go $5 and up because I think that's going to be the conversation people want to hear first. But let's just look at this for a second. And Nades, you and I did this last year, but we didn't elaborate on it at all. We just talked about how it was cool, how you could see it, and how it kind of lined up. Like, for example, you can see right here, Baker, Godwin, Evans. You can see Yoshi Voss. You can see Tyreek. You can plug in Ertz. And then if you're not playing the Geno stack, you can plug in Walker, so on and so forth. You could scroll down to the bottom and say, okay, maybe I'm going to get a defense against New England. Maybe I'm going to get a defense against Dallas or Tennessee, Chicago, something like that. So you can use this to your advantage. And that's kind of what I wanted to show quickly, was also just comparing across the site. Okay, then I go to the Stone. I got my stack rankings in hand, which, by the way, they're also right on the Stone. That's why this is the best tool in DFS. And I'm saying I'm looking for a target game with some good stack rankings. So I'm looking for purple. Scroll. Can't change this. Everybody saw it on the show yesterday. You can go back and see it to watch it. Target game, found it. Top stack ranking on the slate was 9. These 7s were right in there. 791, 797. So I'm back on that. So now I'm looking at these games. Baker, Evans, Godwin. Do you have to run it back? I don't know. We can see Rachaad White getting a ton of ownership. You can leverage that with some of these guys. So now I go to Shiptimizer and I change it to quarterback and I go hand build. And this is where, Nades, I don't know if you have something up with, just the actual points that we can track it with, but I do want to kind of see this here. But just let me run this fast and go change it by value. Baker's right here. We're going to the stack rankings. It was Baker. It was Godwin. And then it was Evans. We started there, right? Then we flip back. And if it's too much for you, it's okay. We want to show it off. If I'm already going with this stack right here, and I'm not going with Geno Smith, I'm more than fine throwing in a running back from that game, right? I'm going back to look, and Kenneth Walker, who is right here, can plug into that game. So he fits. Now I'm going down to the stack rankings again, and they're all going to pop on the Stone too, just to show it off. But I'm just putting Yoshi in because we're going to talk about that in a second anyway. And I'm putting Tyreek in. That's just two guys. We knew what they were. They were chalk for a reason. He's our number 1 and number 2 value. And let me clarify that, a big time value, which we talked about yesterday on the slate, which is no surprise. Everybody knows this. That's why he's 50% in these tournaments. But more on that after. We're going to spend time on it so we can learn from it and try and pick up some process. But when your top priced wide receiver is still popping as the biggest value on the slate, even over some of the actual value priced plays, I'm just okay plugging these two in. Now, here's the interesting thing too, is if you go back to the stack rankings, and I still have it up here. Sorry, I apologize, guys. I wasn't on here, but just to show it now in our builder, we've got Baker with Godwin and Evans. We've got Tyreek and Yoshi, and we got Kenneth Walker because we're not playing Geno in the stack rankings. So that's just a process thing of how I would look at this. Nades and I built like this all last year. You can find success. Is this lineup about to win the Millie? No, we already know that because we're missing ceiling pieces. But I'm just showing you what I want to see what it gets to. And then if I want to run back my stack, that's another thing that I talked about earlier, where we just need to fill out the position. Why not get a run back that at least fits the game? And I don't think tight end is crazy. Plus, I got him popping right here. We have Zach Ertz right there. So we go back to tight end. We see him. He's not far down the value board anyway. So we plug him in. I've got $49.50 left. Again, I'm not even trying to cheat here. Hopefully Nades is running this, but just to run it back and see, let me see here. Here's one way to look at it. I'm going to do a couple 2v2s, Nades. I know I'm talking a lot, but I want people to learn this. This is important. If everyone's playing Richardson, I know he came in lower than expected, but if I'm not playing him, same as the Geno Smith thing, it's not that he doesn't pop over Baker. It's I went to my target game, and if I'm not there, I can go back to the Stone and very clearly see that Kenneth Walker is literally cash consideration with a 27-point ceiling. By the way, he got 21 and had a touchdown called back. That to me is 27. So very close on the accuracy levels. But let me just go back here and plug in Houston just to see what I land on. And this is, again, just funny the way things work out. But you go back to running back, sort by salary. Who would that be? Oh, I can get a run back with my Tyreek stack. Again, this might only be like 150, 160 points, but it projected for 127, and our optimal was 136 yesterday, or 135. So using all the tools, do you have a number up on this? Can you get that?
Yeah, no, I was trying to pull it up real quick on the stream, but I don't have it. I can calculate it here. I have to do it manually.
You calculated it. For a second. I want to go back and show too. So all I'm saying is when you get down to the 2v2 though, do this. I just did that. I did an example. How another way, and I think this would be a more common way, I just wanted to show that one quickly, would be who is at the bottom of our stack ranks. I'm probably not going to the Dallas defense here, right? But maybe I'm going to go to Cincy, or maybe I'm going to go to some of these other ones down here. Let me go back to Shiptimizer and just see who were some of our other DST values. I'm going to sort them here just to see. Cincy is expensive. It leaves 6,100. So you could do Cincy and then go back to 6,100. I think that's like Ford or something. Swift, Stevenson. I mean, you could have got the secondary in with Stevenson, but that's going to get your defense. So you're probably not going there. So I'll leave that one out. Let me go back. Let's see, because we weren't really paying up for D anyway, and just see if there's another one here. Let's go with Cleveland because we saw it over here where Dallas way down the board, right? So you go with Cleveland. I like Cleveland. They were in my slate plan yesterday. That leaves you 6,800. Let me see here. Let me pull this one up. So look at this one, Nades. This is the prime spot here. You if you don't want to run Tyreek and Achane, that's fine. You got Alvin Kamara, 128.6 versus 135, and you left $100. That literally fits perfect. You don't want to go him, you go Joe Mixon. Like all these got to be good lineups. Like, Cleveland wasn't great. Yoshi wasn't great, but the rest of this stuff was pretty solid. These got to be pretty good lineups on the scoreboard. Again, not winning you a milli, but hopefully this process breakdown can just show you guys how to actually use the tools and put it towards it. Did you happen to get any of those scores, Nades?
Yeah, I was just calculating it, but I didn't know with your pivots back and forth with the.
Even if we don't have it, look at this: Baker, Mixon, Walker, Tyreek, Godwin, Evans, Yoshi. That's going to be in a lot of these lineups anyway. So just to note, and if you had a different favorite D, you can do this 2v2 example. But all I was doing was using the stack rankings, putting it together to find a way to build a competitive lineup that had a good projection. Our optimal was around 135 yesterday, so these were still well within 10 points of the optimal. They had much lower ownership. Our optimal was around like 140 or 150% ownership. So just to note something like that where you can see it, but all that to show it was all right there, Nades, and you can break it all down from that perspective using all the tools on the site, right? So anything else you want to add there? I mean, somebody else could rack it up, but I've got it around 160 points. Won't be enough to win. You needed 196, but very competitive scores. The ability to learn and get better. We're not looking for results oriented. Anybody can go build the perfect lineup after the results come out. I'm trying to show you what it looks like before and then leading in. That's the whole goal of this show. So anything you want to add on that stuff, Nades? I mean, you use those stack rankings anyway before we go to the $5.
Yeah. I use the stack rankings, and actually, if you scroll down, right, the Chargers defense, the Raiders are down at the bottom of the list, like one of the last ones right there, right? So just overall, I mean, pulling it, yeah, it's easy to look at, but this isn't updated based on the results on Sunday. The timestamp is the only reason the timestamp changed on those is for the Sunday night football game, because they are updated. Those are included on there. But yeah, just talking exactly through that. And we're talking just Millie in particular. That's not to say you're entering single entries with that same team. You score 160 to 170 in single entries, you're very, very good in terms of ROI yesterday. So that's also another caveat. Many times people are just throwing it into the millie alongside their other contest. At least that's how I do it, and that's how you should do it, just to help improve your floor, right, on those very top-heavy tournaments. And you would have had a very, very good Sunday overall with that kind of score.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Just finding out how you can use it. Let's go. My friend Mike Brown here, good dude, says, I'd like to interview the person or have what they were smoking to win $1 million with this lineup on DraftKings. So this is the $5 winner. People wanted to see it, so we're going to break it all down for you, of course. But again, I'd love to interview this guy if he's around or watching, wants to hop on. Definitely hop on the show. I'd love to hear thoughts on breaking it down. But a lot of theories around this lineup, if you will, Nades. It's like, oh, he knew what he was doing. It's, it was so hard in week 1 to figure out what Josh Allen was going to do. He's going to just play the Miami guys because it's a big total. Mixon gets into that game. After that, their argument kind of broke down a little bit, but it was like, Vikings versus Neighbors chalk, Johnson and Shaheed in a combo pack with no Kamara for similar price. Then you just sort of land on Pierce and Reynolds. I honestly barely knew Reynolds still played and is in Denver. So like little stuff like that. And Joe, I disagree. We talked about this. We sometimes disagree. I love Joe in the chat. Kevlar, good dude. But we pulled it actually. So we went and found he had 3 lineups in this tournament, and an optimizer just wouldn't give him what he landed on. First, an optimizer just wouldn't give you Josh Reynolds. Like it just wouldn't give you this at all. On top of the fact, his other lineups had Josh Allen as the quarterback with either Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb mixed in. And then his other lineup was Anthony Richardson with the opposite of that. If it wasn't Jefferson, it was Lamb. If it wasn't Lamb, it was Jefferson. But just giving you guys an idea to show. And by the way, if you guys want to get your lineup broken down, you can just go to X at ToeTagginTambo. We're going to review some of these too coming up. Nades put his in there, and we'll look at that one. Kim got the $100 Millie Maker. We're already going to throw that up there. GK Pfeiffer won our founding family free roll. Sorry, 3 Fs there, triple F. Founding family free roll. So we'll say that 3 times fast, but he's in there. We're going to check that one out and then break it all down from there and more. But going back to this one, Nades, give me your thoughts, and then we'll break it all down. Let's get through it. We're going to do this show, try and keep it 45 to 60 minutes, but try and get as much in as possible. So we're going to start here. Go ahead, Nades.
Yeah, I just want to hit on the optimizer again. I just added up the ownership. It's less than 70% total ownership. Absolutely zero chance an optimizer is giving you a build that, unless you literally take the slider, right, like in the Shiptimizer, you can adjust the projected ownership. Going back to some of our tools in house here, you can change the projected ownership that your lineups are you want to build. Unless you do something like that, there's just no way you're getting to a lineup that's going to spit out that like that. But I think the biggest point was that we talked about ahead. He likely was a hand builder because we pulled all 3. He played his quarterbacks naked, which, okay, if you're going to do that, you want at least some rushing upside. Do they? Yeah, Josh Allen. He had 2 Josh Allen lineups. The other one was Anthony Richardson. Both guys that can get it done with their feet. He played a stud wide receiver in all 3 of his builds. So in his overall portfolio, I think that's what a lot of people just look at this lineup and like, oh my God, he just closed his eyes, threw a dart at the wall. Didn't look at his portfolio. Regardless of what you have to say about his portfolio, good, bad, ugly, whatever, he's $1 million richer, but he built in the way that's consistent across all 3 teams. One team happened to get there, and that's what you're looking to do in a tournament. He had a stud wide receiver. This one, right, was Tyreek Hill. He had CeeDee Lamb in his other one, and he had Justin Jefferson in his third build. So he played his stud wide receiver. He basically plugged in the guys that he liked, right? Joe Mixon in that high total game. At least that's what my thoughts would be. He's not on the passing attack, so grab a piece of that game. Hope it goes through the run game, right? Joe Mixon gets it done on the ground. He's playing Achane. Well, Tyreek Hill and Achane last year ran pretty much that whole offense. It did help that Waddle got hurt, obviously. So you combo those 2 guys together, and then you probably land on some one-off spots where you just clicked a guy that looked good, or whether he looked at game logs, whether he looked at whatever else for the Josh Reynolds thing. Alec Pierce, we already hit on that in the perfect lineup. The not the Yoshi Voss, but Adonai Mitchell there is the new guy. Alec Pierce is already in that offense. So overall, I mean, I don't think it's the craziest off the wall, but definitely a hand build. And at least he built in his portfolio the consistent across all 3 teams, I will say.
So that's what I'm going to bring up when I get to it. Like I said, I don't think there's any thought process around the leverage plays and all this stuff. I'll get to it in a second. By the way, my guy DJ Parsaver, good dude on Twitter, says all of our subs win. Yeah, exactly. No, these are the ones you can't claim. There's no chance. But I will say, I think Sean's onto it a little bit. I said on the show or in the Discord this morning that I would talk more about this. This is what I could see, and whether the winner, knows this or not, or whether they built for this or not, I don't know. But I'm just going to say, talking about these home run hitters and home run upside, a couple things. One, when you're in a super large field, and especially on week 1 or week 2, when there's so many unknowns, there is something to be said that a lot of the winning lineups are likely to have 1 or 2 dead spots in it, like Yoshi Voss. It didn't really matter, and I know I said we're going to spend more time on him in a second. We'll talk about it more when we get to the high stakes, because I think that's when people want to talk about it more. But in general, the setup would be that in the smaller fields, like if you're playing in a 100-man tournament in a qualifier or something like that, and you overstack the Miami Jags game, you get 4 guys from one side, 3 from the other, a running back and a defense, call it, and you round out your lineup. You're dead or alive, because if that game goes off, you could just run away with this qualifier because you only got 100 people. So that over correlation, well, it may seem like too much, is the chance just to really run away with it. Because if it goes your way, even people that have 2 1s, 3 1s, 3 2, where I'm saying they're running 3 from one side, 1 from the other, a quarterback with a wide receiver with 1 run back, 2-1, something like that, you're just pulling away. You're gone. Like, they're left in the dust if that game goes off. So you really can separate yourself in a way like no other. Would that happen in a large field? Of course, it still would, but more people are going to have that the larger the field you go because more entries, et cetera, et cetera. So there is something to be said in a really large field, and we saw this start last year with this trend, less likely to need the run back, less likely to need the running back with the DST because there's so much variance there, and all of this different stuff. Don't need to, you can overstack it. There's all these different things of one side, I'm saying, without running it back, onslaughts, things like that, where you can get away with a little bit more in the large field. And on week 1, to Sean's point here, that's the only thing I could think of. This is a home run hitters lineup. This is Josh Allen, the guy that can just 40 point. It's possible. We saw what Achane could do last year. 30 points plus possible. Mixon, new offense, sure. But again, can he get you 2 touchdowns? Yes. Skip the Josh Reynolds for a second. Tyreek Hill, home run hitter. Pierce, if he catches 1 long one or something. We've seen that in the past. Injuries there, if it happens. Shaheed, big time home run hitter, and looked like he was going to hit a few more yesterday, but only got the 1. Then from there, it's like whatever happens, happens. That's the same situation, better result, by the way, but that we used earlier when we're saying, like, sometimes it just comes down to your 2v2s and nades. We pulled the 3 lineups. Again, other people aren't going this deep to find this stuff out or to really dig in and try and get an angle. Are we learning much from this? Probably not, but we're getting ideas and concepts that we can usually use and apply in different ways in the future. So just the thought process around it was the home run hitters. He landed on Reynolds in this one. He had Mingo in another one. Who was the other dude? He had another guy too in the other one that was like way off the board.
Jacoby Myers and Jordan Addison.
It was like, yeah, but it was with, I think, CeeDee Lamb mixed in.
Yeah, Wandale. So you had Wandale Robinson, Mingo, CeeDee Lamb, Kamara Ertz, ETN, and Freiermuth, Pat Freiermuth in the flex.
Yeah, double tight end, all that. So I said we'd bring that up later earlier. So my takeaway is just that's an example where I don't think he's getting into a thought process. They, him, I don't know, where they're thinking about Seattle D would focus more on this and leave them open. I just think it's a setup of potentially just jamming home run hitters in and saying, if I get 5 of these guys to absolutely crush, then I'm in a much better place. I see some people do this in, like, again, we're not here for season-long talk, but I see people do it in season-long drafts where if their whole plan blows up, they just start taking home run hitters and say, you know what? Hopefully each week when I'm going up against my opponent, I've got 5 or 6 guys that can blow up, even though my other 2 or 3 kind of suck, when they've got all these floor mid-range plays in their lineup. Again, not much correlation, etc., but just thought I would bring that up before we get into the next stage here and break down the next one. Anything else there you want to add on that, Nades? If not, I'm going to go and get you to talk a little bit about your lineup here. We're going to pull up a few of these, but we'll get to the $100 and the 4444 in a second. But your lineup yesterday, again, not about the result, 768 for $300, but just talk about your process of building this one out a little bit, because I got you here on the show. You might as well break it down for people, and I'm sure you used the tools over at SHIPIT Nation as well.
Yeah, so this is kind of how I build. I usually do a quarterback stacked with usually a bring back, because this is in the $100, right, on tickets, but I also build for the other contests. So single entry, 3 max guy. This placed very well in single entry stuff throughout the site, 147, right? It's still, 40, 50 points off the milli. But it was still a very profitable day. So the Anthony Richardson, that was the one I talked about earlier off the top of the show. He was projected to be mega chalk, came in at less than 11%, about 11% owned in the $100 milli. So that just goes back to ownership, right? Guys get steamed down and things like that. At the end of the day, just play the best plays for the most part and just construct them differently, like having a 6-7% Aaron Jones, right, in there. Secondary correlated with Wandale Robinson, who everyone wanted to play on that team. Projections were going crazy. Malik Neighbors. So I went to the other guy right in that same team with the secondary stack of Aaron Jones, who, by the way, on the Stone was a high upside guy, highlighted in bright blue. Also, the passing attack for Minnesota was way down the board on the stack rankings. So why not Aaron Jones, right? New guy in that offense. Minnesota wins this game. Giants offense isn't anything crazy, so I could easily see Minnesota winning this game. And if they're winning, Aaron Jones likely is going to have a good game. Highlighted right there. He's also pivot off that chalk range, right? Who was else in that range? Kenneth Walker. bunch of other guys throw the results out the window. It's still a leverage play within that same position. I already had the Kenneth Walker play in there. Didn't need a correlation with that. I just played him. He's one of the best running plays of the day yesterday. So this shows you good overall plays, right? Anthony Richardson, projected to be chalk. Kenneth Walker, projected to be chalk. Good play. Put him in there. Kyle Pitts, projected to be chalk for a good reason. They're all in good spots. Rachaad White, same thing. And just leveraging the field with 2 spots in the lineup, right? With the correlated secondary stack. So that's typically how I build. I know that's how Tambo build. Tambo has taught me a lot over the years. And just putting yourself in position, right? Didn't get home today, but maybe it'll get all the way home next time. So
yeah, and I think most of it's here, right? It's like Richardson, Pittman. Then it went to Houston guy, which they were right there, but you put in Diggs instead. Like you said, Wanderlei Robinson was actually in the stack rankings. If you weren't going to neighbors, that made sense. You mentioned about the Minnesota passing stack being way down the board and then using the stone to see that, we had a high upside play there with a really good projection. So you fit him in instead. If you're not playing Gene, this is what people always forget. It's like when projections say, but this guy's the best projected play, and you just think you have to jam them no matter what. It's, again, there's circumstantial stuff like the Yoshi stuff, but just to break it down, if you're not doing what everybody else is doing, but you can see what other people are doing, it's okay to play against that. And if you go back to Nades here, if you're not playing Geno from the stack rankings, put Kenneth Walker in. If you're not playing Baker and these dudes, why not put Rachaad White in? And people were putting him in anyway. If you're not playing the Cincy guys and Yoshi, why not put in the New England defense? And then again, you go back here again, and there's Pitts. So like a lot of your stuff is all right there. People wonder how we get to it. This is the setup of using the stuff, not picks and plays, using what we offer to build your own process and find your way from there. So I thought a really good job on that lineup, Nades. I want to pull up our guy, GK Pfeiffer. It was a free roll. He won $1,000 for this, but just to note it so we can set it up here, Baker with White, and then drop down to McMillan. So went with the triple stack, but in a very unconventional way, and then was still able to get a lot of the basic chalk stuff in that made a lot of sense with Walker, White, just using 2 running backs. That's another flip, not using 3 running backs yesterday. Collins, Tyreek, Kirk, not using Yoshi Voss, getting Kyle Pitts in there, and then landing on a good defense. You got the Chargers there. So again, would he won the Millie Maker with it? No, but almost 160 points. And I probably think a lot of people, myself included, watching this, it's not like we had very many lineups sitting close to 160. These are big boy scores, especially in a lot of the higher dollar, smaller field stuff. Obviously, it's not going to look as good when you go look at the $5 Millie Maker with 198, but these were getting the job done in a lot of qualifiers, satellite tickets, things like that, where you could get in, or higher dollar, smaller field, still a pretty good return. And if they weren't getting there in some of the satellites and qualifiers, that's fine, but you were still putting yourself in a better position and learning from that. So I just wanted to highlight that one, Nades. And then I'm going to see, what else did we get here? There was another one I wanted to look at. I think it was Newens. Yeah, Jordan, who's in here right now, which is awesome to see. And I want to pull his lineup up. He also had Baker, and I think that's what people confuse too, Nades. It's like, we know Baker got us to the house yesterday. That's kind of what it was, but we were targeting that game. So you're going to see a lot of our members. You're going to see a lot of people out there just in these winning lineups that we're targeting it as well. But to see it here differently, let's just see your thoughts on this one, Nades, because we had Baker, McMillan, and then I don't think he ran it back. We had Indy, Houston correlation. We had the Tyreek, Yoshi, which not in the same game, but it was just like Yoshi automatically meant Tyreek in most cases. Mixon in the game as well. So it was a Indy, Houston stack, Pitts, and then rounded it out with the Bears D. So your thoughts on this lineup, and then we'll move on. Yeah,
I want to hit on number one, the McMillan, because we just saw it in back-to-back teams. I like that play. He obviously paired Newens, very good player, obviously, in the chat, been with us from the start. We appreciate him always. But 3,300 McMillan, the new guy in that offense, we already love the passing game in this offense and the game in general, right? With the rookie Jaden Daniels on the other end. Everybody, we had it as a target game, right? The only target game on the entire slate on the Stone. So it was a direct pivot off the 3K guy for $300 more. Granted, he used the combo pack in here with both of them and just taking, hey, I'm going to play both the receivers for less than half the receivers on the slate, right, at 6,600 or 6,300, excuse me, and pair those guys together. Because what does it do for your lineup? Get you the stud running backs. Jonathan Taylor in that game, but Mixon on the other end. So, hey, I'm off the passing attack in that game. Let's grab both the running backs there. Who's the possession guy on Houston? Nico Collins. He didn't play a Tank Dell, who's the home run hitter. He didn't play the Stephon Diggs because of the uncertainty there. Obviously, Diggs got there, but Nico Collins is the possession guy, right? He racks it up, catches, yards. He doesn't need to score. So he just attacked that game from the running backs and the possession guys and just said, hey, those three guys, which very good plays, are going to get there. Kyle Pitts, best tight end play on the slate. Everybody knew it. Plugged him in, and because he already had the leverage, right, with McMillan and the running back. So overall, great build. Target still attacked the target games that we're looking at and just did it in a different fashion. Yeah,
and I want to point out something too, because your lineup showed this as well. People are watching, they can scroll back or whatever, or check it after the fact, but 5%, 1%, 8%, 7%, only 10 at quarterback. I say only because we knew it would get really spread out. Lots of ways to get different. But that's the other thing you're noticing. It's not just landing on all the chalk. And the only game he kind of left out, like the big games, were Indy, Houston. He got 3 pieces from that. Jacksonville, Miami. He got that piece. He used the common chalk mixed with some other low-owned plays. So it's not who you play, it's how you play them to get those in there. People liked a lot of guys in that Atlanta game, and he got the one that sort of scored but did nothing else. And then the only game he left out was Buffalo, Arizona, but there was so many uncertain pieces there as well. So it's really just all how you set it up. But I do want to sort of pump that quickly too, just to show people. Another really cool feature with Shiptimizer we have over at SHIPIT Nation is we talked about being the optimizer that we set up to be able to help you ship. And if you look at this, there is actually presets in here to get a certain amount of guys under a certain low ownership number. So you can actually set it up, or if you reset it and turn those off, you can just say, I want to make sure I have at least where we were talking 10%. You want to have at least 4 to 5 guys, or 3 to 5 guys under 10%, so that you're making sure you're getting that in your builds. And the presets are just based off previous Millie Maker winners over the years on some of the stuff they're doing to set up their lineups. And then you can adjust it all from there. But I think that's a key component to note as well, is you do got to have some sort of leverage in there. Optimizer designed to help you ship, my friend. Yes, thank you. So trying to get through it all here today, but I think that's going to do it for that segment. Let's go to the $100 Millie Maker, Nades, and check this one out, and then we'll finish off on the Mega Millie Maker winner, my boy, Fantasin Guillaume. So let's look at this. SWS 42680. This was the winning lineup, 189. So remember what I was showing you earlier with these 177s, and what did Nuance have? 171? Was he right here in this one? Did he play this one? Yeah, he's right here. So Nuance was actually in this one already. So that's where that came from. $3,000 off that $100 ticket. So that's nice to see. SWS not far behind his winning lineup right there as well. A lot of good players in here. Oxenduck, Beast Mode, Fate Bender. I know DeColts from Stochastic, really good dude. He won the 153 max yesterday. Fate Bender's up there again. He was all over it. Club Camcole up there. He's got like 5 or 6, maybe 7 Millie Makers now. Who knows? But SWS 42680, Nades. This was the lineup. Baker, Godwin, Walker, Dobbins, Collins, Neighbors, Pitts, Kamara, Chicago D. And again, people say all the chalk, right? All the chalk hit. But it's only really 3 guys that were, big chalk. It didn't have Yoshi. It didn't have Tyreek. It didn't have other, the chalk defense. There's a lot of things that he wasn't on. So that's kind of the setup as well here. So talk me through this one, Nades. I pulled it up here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of good plays, a lot of good points we already made from that Baker target game, right? The K9, the Kenneth Walker, Nico Collins, the possession guy. He's still the alpha in that offense, right? People were saying to Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, all good plays. That's going to be a talking point all season long with that trio of wide receivers. A lot of times you'll see 2, maybe even 3 of them get there, just the way that offense works there. So Nico Collins, good play there. The Malik Neighbors was smashing off the page in projections. All the talk was on Malik Neighbors versus Marvin Harrison, right? The 2 rookie wide receivers going crazy. So those are all good plays. The Chicago defense, we've seen come up a couple times, and I want to hit on that because 3,400, they were just slightly more expensive than the chalk defenses, right? You wrote this up in the slate plan with the Chargers, right? Everybody was kind of living at that 2,800 to 3K range. Little bit more expensive. You have the salary, and it's Will Levis on the road in Soldier Field, right? A tough place to play. He's already prone. People were betting his overs on interception props. Why not just go to the defense, right? And yeah, they got a little bit lucky there with some pick sixes in that late, but overall, I mean, I wanted to hit on that for sure. And just another lineup where you play all the good plays. You have 2 leverage spots like the Chicago defense and J.K. Dobbins, where all the steam across the industry leading up to lock was all on the Raiders side. Oh, Zamir White's going to smash, right? The Raiders team is this Chargers team is horrible, right? J.K. Dobbins we've seen him last year, obviously, when he's healthy, he has the explosiveness to just go absolutely crazy. He's sub 5K with a ceiling at a running back position that is loaded with chalk, and your rest of your team is loaded with chalk. On the other side, he's a little bit cheaper than everybody else playing Zamir White in that same game.
Yeah, now I got some real takeaways off this one instantly, and this is what we love about this show, and I get more and more into it as we get going through it. And I think I'm good at sort of finding this stuff and picking it out for you guys. Hopefully it helps your process, but less correlation in week 1 might be one of the notes to take down, like we talked about already, not because the $5 and the results oriented, but just even in this, he didn't do a game stack. He didn't bring it back. He didn't have to combo up any running back DST, nothing like that. A bunch of the projection pieces got there. And I just thought of a couple more things, actually, so I want to pull this up as well. When you started talking about Dobbins, if you go right here in second place, not like it was chalk, but also we love the Chargers D. I did. I know that a bunch of other people did. That's just another secondary thought. If you were wanting to put together that combo, I mean, he could have found $500 more here and maybe leveled up somewhere else. Not that he needed it. I'm just saying, I think it's how much was Mixon? 66? Yeah. So he could have went this defense down 500. He spent all his money, popped up Kenneth Walker to Mixon, and won by even more. Not that he needed to win by more. We're looking for angles of approach and angles of attack. And if you were thinking about Chargers D, which almost 10% of the field was, why we're only 2% thinking about J.K. Dobbins to go with that when the defense is putting them in the position. We're pulling ideas like that and concepts. He could have went down to that D, correlated a little more, and then popped up Kenneth Walker to be another piece.
I got the pivot with that $500 too. Malik Neighbors, right? He could have went up to Jalen Waddle for $6,300. He would have left $100 on the table and got a piece of that massive total game everybody wanted to target. He didn't have the money for Tyreek Hill. Goes up to Jalen Waddle, who scored 19.2.
Right here, 19.2, Waddle 63. There's another one, and I got a third one. Like someone said, yes, he did not do a game stack. This is the one, and I'm pretty sure my math is dead on this one. But if you look at this, because he had 27% here and 20 here and 18 here, man, it actually would have scored more too, by the way, because 29, 31, 33, 34. This is 30, just under 34 points. The other one would have been 29, 33, 23, 34, and more, almost 35 points. So he only cost himself a point. But I think from a build perspective, this makes more sense. But my math says Tyreek was 8,700 and Yoshi was 3,000. That's $11,700. And my math has 5,900 and 5,800 also at $11,700, but at 18 and 12% versus 35 and 33%. So again, you want to talk about that type of stuff. We're looking at 2v2s and pivots. This lineup had a ton of thought process behind it. You can just see it, and it's some of the chalkier plays, but how can you put them together in a different way? We're just looking to see if we can extract different ideas, and that would certainly be one, right? Is if you set it up that way. So I think there's a lot of good stuff here to pull away from it. Anything else on this one, Nades, before we get to the final one?
Nope, I think we're good there.
All right, let's pop it over here. This is interesting. I was texting with my boy. I didn't realize, though, someone then in our Discord said McLovin actually one of them got a stat correction to move him up to first place for $1 million. Right over here, $1 million. Second is 500,000. I'll tell a quick little story because it's kind of the fun of being in the industry, getting to go to these live finals, hanging out with all these guys and some of the best players in the world. Sully, bro, one of the best players in the world. McLovin, one of the best in the world. Hicks, one of the best in the world. Giant Squid on top of the world right now. All these guys, and Fantasin, who not many people probably know him. You should know him from the top of your leaderboards, but been absolutely dominant for the last, X amount of time, but it's at least since the Fantasy Golf World Championship, which is where the story is going to go. He won the Mega Milli leading up to it. He won I forget what they called it. It was like the Mega Par 3, or maybe it was called the Hot Irons or something, the Mega Irons. I don't know. Anyway, big time tournaments, big stakes, big money. And he's just been on absolute fire. Really good dude. Met him and his wife a few times now. Going to actually go to dinner with them. He's in Montreal where the President's Cup is at the end of this month. So I'm going to be out with him there. And I was texting him. He said, just chill, bro. Like, wait, because we just saw, I don't want to see any more stat corrections, he said. And I guess one way or the other, it got stat corrected. Crazy enough, though, it wasn't a stat correction, but just talking about variance in DFS. when I was with him, standing right beside him at the Fantasy Golf World Championship, we were on hole 15 at the 3M Open, the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit, the Fantasy Golf World Championship. He's sitting in second place or first place. I think he's sitting in first place, actually, sorry. And he needs Akshay Bhatia to hit a 4-foot putt for him to win the Millie and to win the championship. Second is $600,000. Unfortunately, we decided to stay on 15, which is an earshot of 18. We didn't go to the hole to watch live. We left it on the TV in front of us. Well, the stream is slightly behind. And didn't we hear the crowd when all he needs is the 4-foot putt to seal it up? We hear the crowd, oh, and he missed it. Obviously, we watch on the screen 30 seconds later. He pushes the putt, loses $400,000 on the spot, and doesn't get the championship because of that. And again, he won a lot more money since then. He's just absolutely incredible at DFS. But just to note, things you can take away. So we're going to look at his lineup, but he got a stat correction. That's the name of the game. That's the variance of it all in his favor yesterday for $500K swing to win another millionaire maker. It's, I think, the second or third in the last little while. Maybe it's at least the second since the last couple of months. But congrats to him. Let's look at the lineup, Nades. Baker, Godwin. He did run the Yoshi Tyreek stack here. He had Jerome Ford. I like this one too. So this is what's funny. It's a flip side of the earlier one. It's the same defense ownership as the Chargers, but with the more owned guy up here versus, you could have flipped it, got more money elsewhere, whatever. But just to note it, Walker with the D. If you like Walker, why don't we like the D? That kind of made sense to me. So I love that call. The double stack with Godwin Evans. No need to run it back. That's why there's no run back or game stack or anything there. The cheap guy to get the most expensive guy, and then lands on Jerome Ford with Cleveland there. So your thoughts on his lineup here, Nades, and then we'll break it down a little bit further.
Yeah, overall, I think it's a great build. And also talk about stakes. Obviously, one of the best high stakes players in the world. Obviously, all the points that you already made. More stack, right? We see this is where the higher the stakes go up. You already made this point earlier on the show, and now we see it come to fruition here. Over more stack, more correlation in this build than the smaller field stuff or the smaller stake stuff because the field size. And when you go and you say, well, Tampa Bay is going to crush, their offense is going to crush. Who's the two main guys? Godwin's, Evans. You know that. Pair them both with Baker, who, hey, got to 10%, but still was a huge target game. We talked about it on every one of these reviews so far. Correlating, right? You like Walker, you know he's going to be chalky. Well, pair him with the Seattle defense and middle that ownership a little bit instead of going in and playing another Chargers defense at the same price, who I didn't know what their ownership is in this contest, but I had to assume they're pretty chalky compared to
10.9.
Yeah, so you save some ownership there overall, got the correlation, and then, you play the Yoshivas free square in this kind of contest, almost 50% owned. But what does he do? He allows you to get up to Tyreek Hill, who can break a slate, go for 40+ on any given day. Right. And then you land on Jerome Ford, who's also, I know some people were talking, there's nobody left in that offense, right? It's Jerome Ford offense right now with the injury to Nick Chubb there. So we've seen him be the workhorse last year. He's a pivot off the chalkier guys, more expensive. He knows he's chalky. He needs one spot to differentiate. That was his guy. And it's crazy that Ford did get there in a game where Dallas absolutely murdered them, but he didn't need to do much. He's 5,500. It's not like he's 7,500 and he needs to go out there and get you 25, right?
So the B1 brings that up actually too. And I thought that's what got him over the hump, but it was not true. He did need that touchdown. That was to jump from third for 200K or fourth for 150 was somewhere sitting in there. That jumped him up into second. Then the stat correction happened. So either way, great fortune, awesome setup, but he put himself in the position. That's the whole point. You can't have us, like everyone will stack right this. You can't have it go your way if you don't put yourself there. And that's what he consistently does, as do all these other guys. Even the ones I didn't mention, like see Johnny Thacker up there, see Keep Calm. All these guys are good. Our guy Hoop, our own Hoop, had we're not reviewing FanDuel right now, but he had a fifth in the 250 milli maker over there. He's another guy, just been doing it forever, showing that success level. And that's what it's all about. We want to surround ourselves with good people. Everyone always says, oh, I'll join a site someday. I'll join a community someday. Join today. Join Monday. Don't wait for someday. Join Monday. You can get it on the action today. Go to SHIPITNation.com and check it out. But the lineup is strong. What I wanted to quickly look before we get out of here is just his setup. So just going through this tool to see here and go by quarterback. So he played 20 lineups. This is a 1,000-person tournament. right? You could play up to 30. He did not play all 30. He played 20. Others did, and they still made money and found their way. But he was on Baker. He was on Fields. He was on Daniel Jones. So people that out there that played these in their single entry and it didn't work out, that's fine. Just know you were on some of the same guys as some of the best players in the world. But at the same time, that's the benefit of a portfolio and then spreading it out, right? He's got a little bit, but it's very balanced at quarterbacks. Let's see as we move along here what else pops up. Way overweight on Rachaad White, Chuba Hubbard, who did not work out. Kenneth Walker, he's about the field on. Over on Singletary, over on Ford. You can see this is the field ownership. This is Fantasin's ownership, right? Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon about field. So like little things like that you're seeing. And this is why we want to dig into this stuff, because you can see, and this is what I saved for the ending, because it's what everybody wants to talk about. You know, if this guy is an absolute donkey play, then why are the best players in the world playing him at 70%? And again, field size matters for sure. The buy-in, what you're up against, all of that. But he actually went for leverage on this play. He went for big leverage on Drake London, extra leverage on Tyreek Hill. So it's fine. It's just you got to commit to it one way or the other. Again, not who you play, it's how you play him. And like Nate said earlier, a guy like Yoshi Voss, who we wanted to spend the time on, he's in a role, man. Like they're missing guys. There was talks about snap counts, everything. Like it just, I didn't fully believe the snap count thing on Jamar Chase. But when you have a $3,000 receiver, there's ways to pivot off it. You can commit to it or not. You can get him, I think I played him about 45% yesterday. So I left over half my portfolio open against it. But all I'm saying is he allows just so much more, and you already had values everywhere else. So it wasn't like you sort of needed to pivot off that to look for different value. Like when people saying about Trenton Irwin, like my goodness, it's like the Pierce play. Pierce didn't show up in half these lineups, even though he's in the perfect. And people confuse that. You said, but he's still a good play. He outscored him. Yes. But it's again, if 0.1% of the field is playing Pierce and 40% are playing Yoshi, do you want to leverage it? Yeah, but at the same time, is it really going to kill you? Because even if you get Pierce right, you probably got so much else wrong and it didn't do it for you. And all you get to victory lap is the same losses with a story to say, but I had Pierce right, or I had Trenton Irwin right instead of Yoshi Voss. Wow, that got you how many dollars? Let's go back to the building blocks here. How much more did you win because of that? In most cases, it's not much. So it's all about what the rest of the field is doing, and that's why we talk about it all the time. We're not on here reviewing the snap counts. We're not on here reviewing the tape. All these other people are going to do that for us. We're going to go out and take that information. I put out the tidbits every week, starting week 2. I always wait for week 2 because we get a bunch more information. Same reason DVP rankings don't come out till week 4 or week 5. We're going to get all that information, but let other people go find that out for us. Let's review what we can control. Let's get better at DFS. Let's focus on the game that we actually play. We don't put on pads. There's no shoulder pads and helmets to play DFS, right? You're going out there. Basically, you're going out with Twitter fingers and some stuff and playing it that way. That's about it. And playing the game everybody else is playing, putting in the work, talking about it on Twitter, and finding this stuff out. So for me, digging into this stuff is more important. Finding out those who play the game well, what do they do? And so that was my take at the wide receiver. Tight end, very tight pool, right? Got some Theo Johnson in there. I'm assuming because he had Daniel Jones, Kincaid, all of that. How much Josh Allen did he have, if any? 15%. So it was Allen, CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones, Fields, and Baker that made the top tier, and then just got a little bit of others. This is, again, how you would handle a 20 max. So I think people can look at it from that perspective. And then lastly, DST capped it at 25%. Spread it out from there. Any more thoughts on that, Nades, as we go through?
Yeah, I got a couple of takeaways just on the running back position alone on his portfolio. So if you could look at his exposure, he knew he was going to be right around the field on Kenneth Walker. He went 35%. Field came in about 33%. So basically the field. But since that, who's the guy that's $200 more that knew he's going to get ownership? He right around 25, 30% he probably expected. That's why he went 60. He knew he was double leveraged the field on a guy in the similar range when he was going the field. So he's not playing both of them at field. If one of them he's going field, he's getting overweight on the other one in Rachaad White. Same thing with Alvin Kamara. He knew he was going to be underweight on Alvin Kamara so that he went over the field on Rachaad White. So it's just little things. He knew he was going to be underweight on Bijan Robinson. Why was he underweight on Bijan Robinson? Okay, if Bijan isn't getting there, who's likely to get there? Well, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, 2 guys he went significantly overweight on. So it's just little things like that on how you build your portfolio based on what you know you don't know exactly what the field, but you have a good idea, especially in stakes like this. Ownership is more true and more kind of projected in a contest like this with 1,000 people at over $4,000 a buy-in. You know the good plays are the good plays. Everybody knows them, the good plays. How do you leverage those good plays with other plays in those ranges to set yourself up for a chance to ship $1 million, which that's all about how you do it right there.
And that was a good call out too. The Bijan one, like you said, not only was he underweight on him, it got flipped, right? Then he goes to Drake London at 70%. He goes to Pitts at 4,600. And then what's funny is too, I didn't see it, but I don't think any Kirk Cousins, right? So let me quickly pull his lineups too. I'm going to round it out with this. I wanted to see also, because the other note you made there that I wanted to point out was he had 60-something% Rachaad White, but Baker was also in his 15%. I wonder if he played any of those together, which we can go and see. So just the first thing I was looking at, so that's the one. Go there. That's the 171. Fields with London. Remember, we were looking at some of these mini correlations yesterday as ways to get it different there. Theo Johnson also as opposed to Malik Neighbors. If we go back to his
check Jatavian Sanders' ownership in this contest at tight end, because he was the other punt tight end that had all the steam that people are going to.
Why doesn't it let me go back? I hate when it resets on you, but user exposures. Let me just check something quick at Neighbors. 15% underweight on Neighbors. But if you look here, flip to Theo Johnson at 10% versus 1. I know it's only 2 lineups, guys, because it's a 20 max, but just little notes like that. I'll find Sanders in a second. Let's just see real quick here. Did he put any of that together, or were they mostly one-offs? I want to see his Justin Fields lineups and his Bakers. Baker with Rashad. Look at this. Here's the over. Remember I talked about the overstack in a smaller field? Because it's 1,000. If he gets this Tampa Bay thing right, a lot of the other pieces just fall into place, but not many people are playing Baker with Godwin, Otton, and Rachaad White. So that one's there. He's got another one, Godwin, Evans, and Rachaad White with the 2 Atlanta guys with nothing. No Justin Fields. Obviously, he didn't play. Kirk Cousins, I made a point about that on the show yesterday, as well as with the slate plan. And then on his Fields lineups, this is what I looked for. So this is a lineup I thought was really sharp yesterday. Did not score well because these guys did not do well. But everyone was saying, like, if London and Pitts go Cousins, you could set it up with Justin Fields on the opposite side to just have to outdo Cousins. Even if those guys did fully get there, there was still a chance that if they're in the game doing their thing, that's pushing Fields on the other side to do his thing. And because of his rushing prowess, his walk-in touchdowns, things like that, he could have done more when it comes to that over a guy like Kirk Cousins. And then who was the last guy you wanted me to check? Was
Sanders came in about 5%.
Where's he at here? Sanders, 4.8% the field played. Yep.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, I think it's an excellent build. And not only that, in his Baker overstack lineups, he didn't run it back with who was in that range. Terry McLaurin. Who'd he go with in that same range? The passing attack from Atlanta, because he knew he was underweight on Bijan. So just overall incredible stuff. And these are the kind of things that you can learn and help improve your process at different stakes, but you can still build the same way. Smaller field, smaller dollar single entries, right? You don't have to play the massive $5 single entry that you're going up against 30,000 people. Yeah, it's a flashy top prize, but guess what? There's 16 other $5 single entries on DraftKings that maybe only have $2,000 or $3,000 up top instead of the 30,000. But it's also, you're not playing against 30,000 people. You're playing against 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 people. And guess what? You ship first place for $2,000, $3,000. You keep doing that over and over. Then you can improve your stakes and give yourself a chance, or play satellites, right? Because you have extra bankroll to play. So it's just little things like that to learn from the best players in the world to apply it to your stakes, because you can still build this type of way in your stakes and your contest that you're in.
Yeah, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. If you like this type of content, we're going to do a lot more of it. If you want more thoughts around what we could do on the show, leave a comment. After it ends, you can't do it while we're live here right now, but when it ends, leave a comment. If you're watching it on replay, leave a comment. Nate's talked about it, but when you do get it, right now at SHIPIT Nation, the early bird pricing stayed up. So hopefully you liked some of what you saw, how to use some of those tools if you're a new player looking to get better. But we also have education courses. You go more, this comes free when you sign up. And like Nate says, right in the course, we have the secrets of satellites. That's how people are winning these tickets into these tournaments, to be able to give themselves a shot at life-changing money. This just one little segment within the 4-hour course breaking down process has made our members a ton of money. And you'll see that on the way out because I'm going to leave you guys with just a little bit of video from the success we've had at week 1. And as we always say, if you haven't found it yet, maybe there's more time, but we are only so far through this week. We still have Monday Night Football. We'll be back in an hour on this channel, Hoop, Title, and myself, breaking down all things for the Monday Night Football game with the Jets and 49ers. For Nades and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, thank you guys all for watching. Let's ship it!